Hello guys, and welcome to my new video. I'm just back from my holidays and I'm back to some big news in terms of the Mythic Plus meta, and we're gonna talk about how Season 2 has shaped out so far in terms of community perception, in terms of the complaining, the imbalance, and what is Blizzard doing to address it. Is it enough? Is it enough for you to come back to Mythic Plus or pushing Mythic Plus? What is happening? Let's go and get started. So first of all, there's a lot of charts out there like this to showcase how bad Mythic Plus meta has been, because in patch 10.15 there's been quite a few things changing because they implemented or added augmentation of Evoker, which is probably the biggest catalyst for this meta or this vicious toxic meta appearing. There's been class reworks. Class reworks have been just so imbalanced, it's actually crazy. We'll talk about how the imbalance has happened, but overall this data or this chart right here showcases, again, I should have said this before the video started, but the balance of the Blizzard, how they approach Season 2 balance before patch 10.15 was actually insanely good. There was a huge amount of diversity, especially for healers. Multiple of healer specs were viable or brought into a lot of the top-end Mythic Plus content. You could play almost any healer and you could still get invited to that highest content. Then 10.15 hits, and this is why it's really sad for me to say the balance has been absolutely atrocious. And you're probably aware of the fact that the God comp or the Exodia comp, because if you have these 5 specs, you are going to win. Basically, that's the whole concept if you don't know Yu-Gi-Oh and things like that. But this chart or this data is all over the place. You're probably fully aware of subcreations information in terms of the top specs right now. These are top range specs. You can see here Augmentation, Shadow Priest, Fire Mage, absolutely by a mile the best. If you look at the tank and healers, it's kind of similar because you'll have Holy Paladin who's miles ahead of everyone else. And we'll talk about healing and things like that because I genuinely believe a lot of players came back to the game to play Holy Paladin and they're like, wow, healing Mythic Plus feels so much easier and so much more fun. I'm going to start healing. And now Blizzard has announced some of the nerfs that are happening instead of buffing other classes. Again, Guardian Druid being really strong. If you look at real player information in terms of rated.io, these are the Season 2 post 10.15 charts, just basically representing there's only 5 specs that are really popular right now with Augmentation of Evoker, Guardian Druid, Fire Mage, Shadow Priest, and Holy Paladin. This is the Exodia comp. You're probably fully aware of this. I don't have to cover this. But the thing is that they're nerfing them. They're nerfing the Exodia comp. They're fixing it, which is absolutely correct. I am not against fixing the game from the state that it is currently in terms of 5 specs dominating Mythic Plus in absolutely 90%, 99% of the keys out there. I am all about fixing that, but is it kind of too late, or how are you going to compensate for the fact that most of the people re-rolled? And you can see here, some of the highest keys in the world are plus 30s. They've done with this God comp. What's happening right now, they're nerfing a lot of the specs. We're not going to talk about all of the buffs and nerfs, things like that, but Augmentation of Evoker is getting nerfed. This nerf is actually not substantial enough to take out Augmentation of Evoker from the meta. I still think Augmentation of Evoker is going to survive and still going to be very strong, and because it is the only support spec that's ever introduced in World of Warcraft, and it was always either going to be absolutely mandatory or it's going to be absolutely useless. It's very hard to balance a support spec, and I kind of sympathize with Blizzard trying to make this spec fun to play, but also not insanely OP. It's kind of in that insanely OP section right now because it really changed how Season 2 worked, and for the people who are pushing Mythic Plus in terms of, you know, that rank 1 or rank 1 achievements or the title, it has changed everything. Now you'll see Fire Mage has been nerfed because of the fact that it's also, again, it's part of the Exodia comp. You'll see Holy Paladin received some substantial nerfs. This is really big, especially considering the fact that Holy Paladin in Mythic Plus deserves the nerfs, but that's going to trickle down to Holy Paladin in raids, and the raid nerfs are looking to be pretty substantial if you look at the raid performance, which is going to be, I don't know how that's going to turn out in the end, because Holy Paladin, you have to remember, from the inception of Holy Paladin, or the rework that happened in 10.15, to now, Holy Paladin has been nerfed roughly around 20%. 20% of your healing, and I'm not talking about the damage. I'm not like, we'll look at the damage nerfs and stuff like that, but your overall healing has been nerfed, especially in something like raid environments, by around 20%. Do you know how crazy that is? That is insanely, like, that is how imbalanced some of the classes were after the rework. 20% is mind-blowingly bad. In order to make a class equal to others, you have to nerf a class by 20%. It's crazy. That's just to showcase how bad the reworks were in terms of balancing. I think the rework in terms of the gameplay for Holy Paladin is absolutely insanely nice. I think you still have a bunch of buttons to press. You still have the toolkit. I still think Holy Paladin is going to be very strong in Mythic Plus content because you have the toolkit or the buttons for almost every situation, and the fact the spot healing for healers is absolutely insanely atrociously bad in Mythic Plus for most of the healers. Holy Paladin is still one of the best spot healing capabilities, which again, that's another issue that you can talk about. But Holy Paladin is being nerfed. Again, you'll see Shadow Priest nerfs as well, which is kind of interesting because they're nerfing the damage, but they're not nerfing the utility. Most of the time you bring Shadow Priest because you want, or Priest in general, it's not just Shadow Priest. It could be any Priest that could bring external PIs, Mass Dispel, Mind Soothe, even Fortitude buff can be quite useful when you're trying to do some of the highest tyrannical keys in the world, and you need to survive rather than actually you have enough damage, you have enough healing, but you need to survive some of the hits, and that can also be pretty powerful. And then a bunch of other healers and DPS classes or underperforming classes got some buffs, trying to bring them up to the, to the Exodia comp. So is this good or bad to the game? The nerfs, the fixes to Exodia comp, they're absolutely needed. I think no one's going to disagree with this. I think the fact that Mythic Plus, and again, you can see all these shards, the fact that there are certain specs that are so far ahead of everyone else, they need to be brought down. In healer case, and specifically Holy Paladin or healing Mythic Plus, I think a lot of people wanted these healers to be brought to the levels of Holy Paladin, and I kind of agree with that because I think overall there's been so much negativity about healing in Dragonflight Season 2 because healing is relatively hard. There's a lot of healer checks, and the fact that you have to rely so much on your party in order for them to use defensives in order to survive. And if they don't survive, especially in puck situations and lower end keys, people tend to flame healers a lot. And there's been a lot of this, and I'm falling into this, where I don't really enjoy healing in Season 2 that much. I've been playing a lot of Preservation Evoker, I played Resto Shaman and things like that, and honestly, especially if you're pugging keys, it can be really toxic or not fun in certain situations because you rely so much on your party members. So many people were really overjoyed, honestly, and they swapped to Holy Paladin because Holy Paladin was insanely powerful, it was insanely fun, and healing Mythic Plus felt really cool for the first time in Season 2, that's my personal opinion. It felt really cool to heal keys as Holy Paladin because you had more carry potential, you could carry the dungeon a lot more, you were not really that much reliant on others. Paladin was stronger, it had insane spot healing, which a lot of these healers don't have or lack in a lot of cases. So you had spot healing, you had defensives, you had everything, and healing felt really fun. And Blizzard decided to, again, we talked about the nerfs to Holy Paladin, they're absolutely huge in terms of damage, in terms of healing, in terms of everything. It's pretty big, it's pretty substantial. I still think Holy Paladin is going to be doing pretty well, but a lot of players out there, and again, leave a comment below if you feel like this, I think a lot of players out there wanted other healers to be brought back or brought back up to Holy Paladin levels so healing would feel easier and they would be more inclined about pushing. Because right now I can almost guarantee you, there's a lot of Holy Paladin players out there that they're like, I don't know if I want to play Mythic Plus anymore. I don't want to be reliant so much on other players. I want to be able to carry the groups, and I cannot carry the groups as a healer anymore because healing is so intensive, and a lot of healing classes don't have the toolkit or spot healing toolkit that they need in order to make Mythic Plus smooth. So I know there's going to be a lot of players who are going to be leaving Mythic Plus after these nerfs. I know there's going to be a lot of healers who are going to be unhappy about the fact that you can't carry groups, and a lot of players wanted these classes to be brought back up and make healing easier. Let me know how you feel about this. This is a big point of discussion. Again, healing has been very, very different in Season 2 because I've heard so many negative things about this, and I almost kind of agree with this. But overall, I still think when looking at all these changes that the Exodia comp is going to be rampant and still very popular at the highest keys in the world. The only difference is that maybe certain specs and classes will be able to sneak in there, maybe not for the highest keys in the world, but the lower keys. Maybe there will be more chance for something like Discipline Priest to enter the meta because, hey, they received some substantial buffs. But I think Blizzard's intentions have not been met. The only thing that they achieved right now is that it's harder to do keys basically with the same or very similar comp, and nothing has really changed. This season is shaping out to be still one of the worst seasons in World of Warcraft's history when it comes to balancing. But what's gonna happen? There's almost no incentive to try and push highest keys or really high keys in the world because you're no longer going to be able to achieve some of these highest keys because the god comp has been nerfed, and Blizzard did not compensate by nerfing dungeons. That's one of the things that a lot of players are talking about. If you're going to nerf the best comp in the game right now that's able to achieve the highest keys in the world, or even just doing your 25, 26, 27 a lot easier, if you're gonna nerf that comp, you need to compensate for the fact that there's still months and months of Season 2 left. What about the players who still want to get that rank 1 title, or players who maybe they just want to push? They want to push as high as they can get, but they know in their minds that, hey, if I played for those 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever after 10.15 was released, if I pushed really hard for those couple of weeks, I probably could have achieved the highest keys for the rest of the season. And that is the whole point of the video. The incentive to push, the mindset to push, especially for me. I don't even feel like I could swap to a bunch of other healers in terms of trying out. For example, I think this Priest would be really nice to play. I could swap to Resto Shaman. Resto Druid is getting some changes in 10.17, which I think are interesting with Treants. Again, Preservation of Oak I've been playing for a long time. I could be playing these healers right now in Mythic Plus, but I know in my head that, hey, I'm probably not going to get the same keys, or it's going to be substantially harder for me to achieve the same keys that I did before these nerfs happened, or before the nerfs happened to Holy Paladin. And this kind of destroys the incentive to push, at least for the people who are playing Mythic Plus day in and day out. And this is a really bad thing. How does Blizzard balance this? How does Blizzard make Mythic Plus fun again? Again, we're going back to that Mythic Plus or healing discussion again, where healing Mythic Plus has not been fun for a long time. And honestly, I feel like the only time it was fun to heal Mythic Plus was with Holy Paladin, because you had the tools to battle every single situation. And I genuinely believe that every other healer probably should have been buffed to that Holy Paladin level, and it would bring back a lot of the players who quit. It doesn't matter if you're doing plus 15s, 16s, 20s, 27, 28s, 29s. You can have the same negative experience doing Mythic Plus right now because of the lack of toolkit that you can have with certain healers, specifically spot healing. Right now we're living in, again, arguably one of the worst seasons ever made in terms of Season 2, in terms of what it achieved, in terms of how it prevented, or it's killing the desire for a lot of players to play Mythic Plus, because, again, you need to nerf dungeons at least to compensate for the changes. That's at least my opinion right now. Let me know how you feel about this. I'm sorry about the ranty video. I'm sorry, this is my first day back. I'm just a little bit, again, I'm happy about the nerfs, don't get me wrong. I'm happy about the changes to the God comp. There needs to be a way to compensate for the highest keys done because of this comp. Because all the other specs are going to be pushing keys right now. The desire to push is going to be eliminated, or it's going to be a lot lower. How do you change that? Nerf dungeons. At least nerf some of the dungeons so it's easier to get 1 or 2 levels, so you can push higher keys and try and get that title. I really want to know about healers. How do you feel about healing? Did Blizzard do the right thing nerfing Holy Paladin, or should Blizzard have buffed every other healer to make healing in Mythic Plus more fun, to make healers able to carry dungeons? Because right now, to carry a dungeon as a healer, if you're playing anything but a Holy Paladin, you're so reliant on your group, and that can be pretty toxic in puck situations. Let me know how you feel about this, and I'll see you in my next video.